They targeted him after his mom died. Big mistake.
I never understood how quickly a person's world can collapse until the week my mother died. For days after I stood beside her grave. For days after I placed white lilies on her coffin. For days after I tried to steady my shaking hands long enough to sign funeral papers. The HOA decided to remind me that grief means nothing to people drunk on petty power. My name is Evan Carter, and I live in Lakeview Estates, one of those neatly manicured suburban neighborhoods that advertises itself as peaceful, respectful, and community-driven. That slogan? A lie so polished it should win advertising awards, because behind those glossy promises is an HOA board run by people who treat power like a personal religion. And after what they did to me, I made it my mission to expose every rotten piece of their corruption, legally, publicly, and permanently. This is the story of how grief turned me into a fighter, how an HOA tried to crush me, and how I burned their reputation to the ground without ever breaking a law. For days after the funeral, my mother passed away on a Tuesday. Heart failure, sudden, quiet, cruel. She had been living with me for the last year. I had converted my garage into a small studio for her, something dignified, bright, with a window facing the sunrise, because she always said morning light kept the world honest. She never got to see another sunrise after that Tuesday. The funeral was simple but beautiful, the kind she would have liked. My sister flew in from Seattle, my aunt from Georgia. Old family friends trickled in with casseroles and awkward hugs. Through all of it, I moved like a man underwater, slow, numb, only half live. 4 days later, Friday morning, I was sitting on the couch staring at a pile of sympathy cards I hadn't opened yet. When the doorbell rang, not a gentle ring, not a polite ring, but the kind of aggressive, rapid-fire pressing that instantly spikes your blood pressure, I opened the door to see Mr. Donald Pierce, the HOA president, a man who looked like he was permanently smelling something rotten. Mr. Carter, he snapped before I could say hello. We need to discuss the violation notices you've been ignoring. My stomach dropped, not because of the notices I hadn't seen any, but because of the timing. I just buried my mother, I said, voice dry, cracked. This isn't a good time. He clicked his tongue. That's unfortunate, he said, not sounding remotely sympathetic. But HOA deadlines do not pause for personal matters. I stared at him. Stunned, he lifted a clipboard. You have accumulated fines for let's CXS trash bins being left out, your front grass exceeding regulation length by 2 inches, and unauthorized use of your garage for habitable purposes. I blinked. You mean the studio I built for my mother? The one she lived in? He shrugged. If it wasn't approved by the board, it violates community standards. The threat I thought he would offer condolences. I thought he would show basic human decency. Instead, he stepped closer. If these fines aren't paid by Monday, we will begin lien proceedings on your home. I felt the world tilt. You're threatening to take my house, I whispered, for days after my mother died. He didn't flinch. Rules are rules. I shut the door in his face. He slid the notices under the door before walking away. The breaking point didn't cry when my mother died. Not at the hospital, not at the funeral, not when I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at her favorite mug. But that night after reading the HOA notices, after hearing Pierce's cold voice echo in my skull, I finally broke. The grief, the anger, the exhaustion, everything crashed down at once. I sat on the floor and sobbed like a child. My mother always raised me to fight fair, to stay calm, to honor her values, but she also raised me to never let bullies win, and the HOA had picked the wrong week to come after me. I was done crying. I was ready for war. The first step, knowledge is ammunition. Before firing a single shot, I studied my enemy. I spent the entire weekend researching state HOA statutes, homeowner rights laws, civil harassment definitions, improper lien practices, fiduciary responsibilities of HOA boards. What I discovered: the HOA had violated at least 6 state regulations. Most importantly, they cannot issue retroactive fines for unaddressed violations without proper notice. And they definitely cannot threaten lien action without a formal hearing opportunity. Pierce broke both laws. I documented everything. Screenshots, photos, timestamps, legal citations. Then I stumbled upon something even more interesting. The HOA skeleton closet, a public records search revealed. The HOA treasurer, Linda Marsh, had filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago. The HOA vice president, Earl Whitaker, was involved in a lawsuit over mismanaged funds in a previous community. And the king of the clowns himself, Donald Pierce, was operating the HOA, while also running a private security contracting business that recommended homeowners pay for his inspections. Conflict of interest. Illegal, clear as day, my mother used to say. People who abuse small power always have bigger sins hiding behind the curtain. She was right, so right. This wasn't just about trash bins and grass height. This was a corrupt, petty little empire run by insecure tyrants. Time to expose them. The legal strike on Monday morning, the same day he threatened to start, lien proceedings. I sent a certified letter addressed to the HOA. Board. Inside were a cease and desist, notice citing harassment during bereavement, a warrant for an emergency hearing, a detailed list of legal violations committed by the board, copies of relevant state laws, notice of my intent to pursue legal remedies if harassment continued, but the piece de resistance, CCD, the letter to the entire neighborhood email list. If the HOA wanted to embarrass me during the worst week of my life, then I would return the favor with truth, transparency, and receipts. Within 2 hours, my inbox exploded. Dozens of neighbors responded, some sympathetic, some furious, some revealing they too had been bullied, threatened, or fined unfairly by Pierce. One neighbor wrote, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Pierce tried to lien my house last year for a $75 violation. We need real change." Another, "Your mother was a wonderful woman. She deserved respect, not this cruelty." And another, "I have documents you may want to see. Call me." The HOA board's perfect image began to crumble in real time. The neighbor who asked me to call her was Mrs. Ramirez, a retired journalist. We met that evening. She handed me a folder so thick it looked like a college thesis. Inside were misappropriated fund reports, unauthorized board expenses, a payment trail showing Pierce approving payments to his own contracting company, and emails. The emails where board members mocked residents behind their backs. None of this surprised me. But seeing it all documented, it lit a fire in my chest. I asked her why she saved all this. She shrugged. "Someone like you was going to need it one day. Together, we crafted a perfectly worded, fact-based, legally safe email summarizing the board's corruption. We didn't exaggerate. We didn't accuse without evidence. We simply presented facts." I sent it to the neighborhood, the HOA Oversight Committee, the State Housing Department, and beautifully the local news tip line. The neighborhood erupted. Pierce's name became a curse overnight. The board had no choice but to grant my emergency hearing. I arrived with a binder of evidence, witness statements, legal citations, my lawyer, and a level of calm they absolutely did not expect. Pierce glared at me like a man who just realized the power he abused was slipping through his fingers. He opened the hearing with a statement dripping with arrogance. "Mr. Carter has been combative and uncooperative." I didn't interrupt. I let him talk himself into a hole. Then, when it was my turn, I stood and spoke with a quiet, grieving steadiness. "My mother died 1 week ago," I said. "Instead of compassion, you came to my door to threaten my home. You violated multiple state statutes to do it." Then I opened my binder. I presented their illegal lien threats, their incorrect violation notices, their harassment during bereavement, their financial conflicts of interest, their misuse of HOA funds. Neighbors who attended gasped. Board members shifted uncomfortably. Pierce's face went from arrogant pink to panic-stricken white. My lawyer then delivered the final blow. "Mr. Carter is prepared to file a civil harassment suit and notify the State Attorney General's office regarding financial misconduct." Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. The board whispered among themselves. Finally, Linda Marsh cleared her throat. "Mr. Carter would like to dismiss the fines." My lawyer smiled politely. "That will be a good start." The fallout was glorious. Within 2 weeks, Pierce resigned as HOA president. The treasurer stepped down. The vice president was removed after a special election. The HOA's financial records underwent a state audit. A temporary oversight committee was installed. And the neighborhood voted to rewrite the HOA bylaws to limit board power. Neighbors thanked me. Some even brought food to my door. They told me my mother would have been proud. They were right. She hated bullies, especially the small-minded kind, who hide behind titles. Grief is strange. It breaks you, then rebuilds you with sharper edges. My mother used to tell me, if someone abuses power, don't argue with them, expose them, and let their own shadow destroy them. That's exactly what I did. The HOA tried to crush me when I was at my most vulnerable. Instead, they lost everything. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted peace. I wanted to protect my home, and I wanted to honor the woman who taught me to stand up for myself with dignity and truth. Today, the neighborhood is calmer, kinder, fairer, and every time I look at my mother's old studio now, empty but filled with sunlight, I feel her with me. Not gone, not forgotten, but guiding me still.